Oh yes, I'll see you in the rapture. I'll see you in the rapture. I'll see you at the meeting in the air.
This is Evangelist Henry Walker. Welcome to the podcast. I want to continue on this podcast today talking about the Father's battle plans for us, the remnant, in his pre-rapture season. Specifically, the battle over our minds, the battle over our five senses: touch, taste, smell, hearing, and sight. But let's go to Father in prayer first. As you may or may not know, this is a pro-life ministry. We believe that life begins at conception. In every podcast, the Father has instructed me to pray for the babies in the womb, for a full development and a full birth. With the babies in the womb, their hearts begin to beat around 18 days. Around 4 months, their hearts are pumping about 25 quarts of blood per day. So if you want to join with me, we're going to pray for the babies in the womb right now. Father, I thank you for the babies in the womb, Father. Bring them to a full birth, Father. And if anybody listening out there had an abortion, help them to repent, to ask you to forgive them, and go on and follow you, and not to look back. And Father, in this podcast and every succeeding podcast, I ask you to use me just the way you want, Father. Let me say only what you want me to say, nothing more and nothing less. Help people, Father, to open up their spirits and not only receive the word, but study the word for themselves. And Father, we give you all the praise and the honor, Father, in the mighty name of Yeshua, by the blood of Yeshua. Please turn with me to the book of Genesis, chapter 3. So again, I want to talk about these mind attacks by the Antichrist to try to pull people away from the family of the Father, specifically working through the five senses: touch, taste, smell, hearing, and seeing. And some people say, is the Antichrist really in power right now? He sure is. And if you don't see it, ask the Father, open up your eyes to see it, who this person really is, and what he's doing that's affecting the whole world right now. Remember, we talked about in the book of Esther how Haman was a type of the Antichrist, wanted to kill all the Jews, and he was stopped. He got hung on his own gallows that he wanted from Mordecai. But in the very last chapter of the book of Esther, Mordecai was lifted up, a type of the rapture, lifted up to be second behind King Ahasuerus. And also, 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 3, it says that there'll be a falling away before the Antichrist is revealed. And there's a falling away right now. So many people are being pulled away from the Father, from the family of the Father, and they don't even realize it. And a lot of that pulling away is happening through technology. The Antichrist knows that if I can make it easier for people, they'll just jump right into it. It's just like a frog, putting a frog in warm water and getting warmer and warmer, hotter and hotter. The frog just gets so comfortable that it just disintegrates. And so the enemy is trying, through the Antichrist, to get people to focus on his agenda, which is surveillance, leading to the mark of the beast. And whenever you hear AI, just think surveillance. In China, people can't do anything without the Chinese authorities knowing it. It's where the world is going to. But in Genesis chapter 3, verse 1, now the serpent was more subtle. Realize that this Antichrist is very subtle. He is doing some great things in the natural. But there's things that you don't realize that are not being stressed that he's doing behind the scenes. And he's surrounded by technology people. And you research the Stargate that they're trying to promote and so many other technological advancements. A lot of it's leading to changing the DNA of a person. Do you realize that Yahweh's name, YHWH, is on every part of our DNA? You can research it yourself. YHWH. Why, when I say Yahweh, are so many people surprised and never heard of Yahweh or don't use Yahweh? Why not? That's his name. You look in the Old Testament, it talks about praising his name. What other name could he have but Yahweh? Wonderful Counselor, Prince of Peace, those are all titles, but his name is Yahweh. And then his son's name is Yahshua, the Y-A-H-S-H-U-A. The Y-A-H is the family name. Y-A-H-W-E-H, Y-A-H-S-H-U-A. See, Yahweh is an action verb. He actively moves on our behalf when we're part of the remnant. In Genesis chapter 1, he used the term Elohim, and Elohim is plurality of his attributes. And he's actually saying, I have all this power. But in Genesis chapter 2, he uses Yahweh Elohim, meaning that not only do I have all this power, I want to use it for my creation. Of course, now the serpent was more subtle than any beast of the field which Yahweh Elohim had made. And he said it to every time you see L-O-R-D capitalized in the word, it should have been translated Yahweh 7,000 times. That's how much Satan doesn't want you to use that name Yahweh, because it means I am that I am. Anything that you need me to do after you surrender everything to me and become part of my remnant, I'll do for you. As long as it's in the word and it's not going to hurt you. Again, now the serpent was more subtle than any beast of the field which Yahweh Elohim had made. And he said unto the woman, yeah, had Elohim said, you shall not eat of every tree of the garden? He lied. And the woman said unto the serpent, we may eat of the fruit of the trees of the garden. But the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden, Elohim had said, you shall not eat of it, neither shall you touch it, lest you die. And the serpent said unto the woman, you shall not surely die. There's no person on the face of the earth can match the devil in his kindness and his knowledge, except that they are sold out to the Father and part of his remnant. They're no match for Satan by themselves. In verse 4, and the serpent said unto the woman, you shall not surely die, for Elohim doth know that in the day you eat thereof, then your eyes shall be opened, and you shall be as gods, small g, knowing good and evil. And when the woman saw that the tree was good for the food, and pleasant to the eyes, and a tree to be desired to make one wise. See, it was through the senses Satan is attacking. Sight, hearing. She took of the fruit thereof and did eat, and gave also unto her husband with her, and he did eat. See, it's a plan of the enemy, that this temptation right now through the Antichrist is as strong or stronger than the Garden of Eden. Trying to pull people away from the family of the Father, and he did very successfully here, because Adam and Eve were cast out of the garden, and a cherubim with a flaming sword was put right by the entrance of the garden so they couldn't come back in. He took the family of the Father from the Father. They were created to be right below the Father, above the angels, but they gave that position away, and Yeshua had to get it back for us, and he did. See, what I'm saying on this podcast is not for everybody. Some of you just want to flow with the majority. But the road to hell is wide, and many are found on it. The road to heaven is straight and narrow, and few are found on it. If you're comfortable in the majority, you got a problem, because Yeshua was not in the majority. He had 12 down to 11, back to 12, added the 500 people that he appeared to after he rose. Only 120 showed up on the day of Pentecost. Then he had 5,000 the first day at Pentecost and 3,000 the next day, which is a very small number compared to the millions and millions of people that were in Jerusalem at the time of the Feast of Pentecost. So if you go with me to Psalm 22, we have to push through these mind attacks and be focused on Yeshua. Don't lose our focus. The Antichrist is wanting to get people's attention away from the Father. What I feel is through technology is his main weapon. I believe that the smartphone, there's some good things about the smartphone, kind of really open up the door down the line to the mark of the beast. 70% of all the people that have a smartphone have admitted that they are addicted to the smartphone. What about the 5G possible effects on people's bodies? What's happening to the young people where they can't communicate in person to each other? They have to text. Do you see how Satan is trying to change humanity? But you have to resist what he's doing. Again, watch how this Antichrist has surrounded himself with technology experts. Why? to control, to surveil, digitally controlling. People won't be able to buy or sell without having a digital ID type of thing. Look what the people in cryptocurrency, how they have iris scans, hand scans. Look at how the store, a particular store, you can actually go in and buy something by putting your hand under some type of device, and it'll charge your bank account. See, it's a battle for the five senses. If they come out with a better smartphone, people will jump on it because they make it easier for themselves. And it's like lulling them to sleep. It's so easy right now. You don't have to open up the Word and read it and meditate on it. You can just pull it up on your phone. When you go to the service at your congregation, you can just pull it up on your phone. But what about opening up and reading it and turning to another book as the Father leads you? Where's all that? Gone. So many times I'm looking for an answer from the Father, and I open up the Word, and there it is. With all these technology advancements, as I mentioned, knowledge is doubling every month. So you have to stand guard, watch. Psalm 22. Be careful, it goes through past your eye gates. It goes into your mind. Stand on the Word no matter what's coming against you. And here's a picture of Yeshua. I believe he quoted Psalm 22 when he was hanging up on the tree for us. Psalm 22, verse 6. This is Yeshua. I believe Yeshua quoted Psalm 22 when he was hanging up on that tree for us. And he said to the Father, "But I am a worm, and no man, a reproach of men, and despised of the people." This was coming against him, but he stood strong. They wanted him to come down, but he just stayed up there for us. Verse 7, "All they that see me laugh me to scorn. They shoot out the lip. They shake their head, saying, He trusted on Yahweh that he would deliver him. Let him deliver him, seeing he delighted in him." This is the pressure that was coming against him, but he didn't give in to that pressure. He stood strong on the Father and his Word. He knew he was born to die, but his flesh was under attack. Verse 9, "But thou art he, Father, that took me out of the womb. Thou didst make me hope when I was upon my mother's breast. I was cast upon you from the womb. You are my Father from my mother's belly." Verse 12, "Many bulls have compassed me. Strong bulls of Bashan have beset me round. They gaped upon me with their mouths as a ravening and a roaring lion. I am poured out like water, and all my bones are out of joint. My heart is like wax. It is melted in the midst of my bowels. My strength is dried up like a potsherd, and my tongue cleaveth to my jaws, and thou hast brought me into the dust of death. For dogs have compassed me. The assembly of the wicked have enclosed me. They pierced my hands and my feet." And you can write this down in Zechariah 12, verse 10. The Father says, "They have pierced my hands and my feet." This is the Father hanging up there for us in Yeshua. Inside of Yeshua, strengthening Yeshua to give up his life for us. In verse 22, in the midst of all this attack on his mind, on his body, Yeshua said, "I will declare your name unto my brethren, Father. In the midst of the congregation will I praise thee." He said, "I know I'm coming back. I'm going to rise. You're going to raise me from the dead." See, in the middle of all these thoughts coming against him and attacks against him and the words coming against him, he stood on the Father's word that he was going to be resurrected and come back and stand in the congregation and praise him. In verse 25, "My praise shall be of thee in the great congregation. I'll pay my vows before them that fear him." Verse 30, "A seed shall serve him, the Father. It shall be accounted to the Father for a generation. They shall come and shall declare his righteousness unto a people that shall be born, that he had done this." What is the last thing Yeshua said as he hung up there? "It is finished." So I believe that Yeshua quoted this up there, Psalm 22, because it said that he had done this, the last part of Psalm 22. And Yeshua said, "It is finished." He had an appointment with the Father at 3 o'clock on Passover, where he was going to give up his life for us. And he did, because at 3 o'clock on every Passover, the high priest would say over the lamb that was slain that it is finished. And Yeshua, one sacrifice for all on Passover at 3 p.m. is what he did for us. So remember, Zechariah 12, verse 10. The Father said, they're going to look upon me whom they pierced. So Yeshua is the Father manifested in the flesh. Go with me to Isaiah 53. So look at the attack that Yeshua had on his mind, on his body. But he held on to the Father's word. And in the middle of the attacks, he said, I'm going to arise again. I'm going to praise your name in the great congregation. And he did. Isaiah 53. So many of you are familiar with this chapter, Isaiah 53. In verse 1, who had believed our report, and to whom is the arm of Yahweh revealed? Yeshua is the arm of Yahweh. The only body that Yahweh has is in Yeshua. He's the one that's sitting on the throne. Revelation chapter 4, verse 2. There's not 3 thrones up there. There's one. It's the Father in Yeshua. And it's a book on my website at henrywalker.org, a free book. At the bottom of the written message page is the Trinity, really a mystery. It's free. Just download it. It'll explain the so-called mystery of the Trinity. The Trinity is the Father manifested himself as the Father in Yeshua and as the Spirit that's making us more like Yeshua. 3 manifestations of the one Father. We're made in his image. We're body, soul, and spirit, but we're one person. In verse 3, Isaiah 53, he is despised and rejected of men, a man of sorrows, and acquainted with grief, and we hid, as it were, our faces from him. He was despised, and we esteemed him not. Surely he had borne our griefs and carried our sorrows. Yet we did esteem him stricken, smitten of the Father, and afflicted. But he was wounded for our transgressions. He was bruised for our iniquities. The chastisement of our peace was upon him, and with his stripes we are healed. Later Peter in 1 Peter 2:24 said that by his stripes we were healed. Claim that promise today. There's healing in your body, healing in your mind, healing in your finances, healing spiritually, which is the most important. Right now, receive it in the name of Yeshua, by the blood of Yeshua. All we like sheep have gone astray, and we have turned everyone to his own way. And the Father had laid on him the iniquity of us all. He was oppressed and he was afflicted, yet he opened not his mouth. Because if he opened his mouth and said, stop, there goes our salvation. He's brought as a lamb to the slaughter, and as a sheep before her shearers is dumb. So he opened not his mouth. He didn't want to open his mouth, because he didn't want to stop the procedure that was happening. Because that procedure was all about for us. And because he hung up there and stayed up there in verse 12, the Father said, therefore I will divide him a portion with the great, and he shall divide the spoil with the strong, because he had poured out his soul unto death, and he was numbered with the transgressors, and he bare the sin of many, and made intercession for the transgressors. So hang out with the Father, stand strong, stand on his word. Be careful what they're saying on TV, the latest news, and everything seems to be so good. And this Antichrist person is doing some great things in the natural. The whole world is being affected. He's rising up as the king of the world because it's his time right now. The Father has given him this time, allowing the Father's remnant to be tested by this Antichrist. So stand strong. Don't be taken in by the things that are happening in the world, as I mentioned. And it seems that, hey, America, the world is being blessed. How can the Father bless America and the world when last year alone 69 million babies were aborted? And since 1973, 63 million babies have been aborted in the U.S. alone. Is this the Father blessing people in the natural? Get your eyes off the natural. As a result of Yeshua staying up there for us, in chapter 54, verse 2, we can now enlarge the place of our tent, just as the Father said in verse 12 of Isaiah 53, I'm going to divide him a portion with the great, and he shall divide the spoils. He's dividing the spoils for us right now. We can enlarge the place of our tents. We can dream big. We can let them stretch forth the curtains of our habitations. We can spare not, lengthen our cords, and strengthen our stakes. There's so much riding on you standing against this Antichrist. and staying strong on the Father, and don't be moved by every new technology advancement, because it's all part of surveillance. Again, you look at China, they know about what everybody's doing. They're surveilling. People can't do anything without them watching them. In verse 3, because we shall break forth on the right hand and on the left. That's the way the Father talks. We shall. For we shall break forth on the right hand and on the left, and our seed shall inherit the sinners and make the desolate cities to be inhabited. Why? Because in verse 5, our Maker is our husband. Yeshua is our husband. And he's our Maker. He's the creator. The Father created everything by his word. For Yeshua is the word manifested in the flesh. Seen of angels, preached unto the Gentiles, believed on in the world, received up into heaven in the ascension. 1 Timothy 3:16. Again, for our Maker is our husband, the Yahweh our host is his name, and our Redeemer, the King of Israel, the Elohim of the whole earth shall he be called. It's important to fight back on this assault on our minds. And the assault is on the family of the Father. And you have to be part of his remnant to come under his complete protection. And the way to be part of his remnant is to say, Father, I repent of all my sins. Forgive me of all my sins. Come into my spirit. Fill me with your spirit. Mortify the deeds of my flesh. Every day make me more and more like Yeshua, bringing the fruit of the Spirit out of my life. Love, joy, peace, long-suffering, gentleness, goodness, faith, meekness, temperance. Every day the Father wants to work on us and point out things in our lives that he wants to get rid of to make us rapture ready. We can't get rapture ready by ourselves. And on every Sabbath from Friday 6 p.m. to Saturday 6 p.m., remember, evening and morning were the first day in Genesis chapter 1. So the day starts at 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. are the 12 hours of the night. 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. are the 12 hours of the day. And Yeshua mentioned, are there not 12 hours in a day? So get yourself on that schedule and forget about 12:01 a.m. Nowhere in the Word does it mention that the day starts at 12:01 a.m. It's paganistic. And everything that's in your life that can be traced back to paganism, you better ask the Father to get it out of your life and take the proper steps. What Constantine brought into his form of Christianity, most believers are following. The holidays that he came up with, all paganistic. He wanted to bring the pagan nations into his form of Christianity. So he said, hey, you worship three gods. This Christianity has three gods, but we'll call them one. And we'll call it a mystery, the Trinity. So really ask the Father to get rid of that stuff out of your life once you realize how entrapped you are in that doctrine. And the holidays. Where does it talk about Christmas in the Word? Easter in the Word? Valentine's Day in the Word? If you read a message on my website, henrywalker.org, the top written message is, when was Yeshua born? When did he die? When did he rise? It knocks out three holidays: Christmas, Good Friday, Easter. Yeshua was born on Passover, died on Passover on Wednesday, 3 p.m., rose on Saturday, the Sabbath, 3 p.m. What are the days he going to rise but the Sabbath? He set apart that day in Genesis chapter 2 to commune with his people. And just like we read before, it said the voice of the Father was coming to talk to Adam and Eve. They didn't wait for him. They talked to the devil. They talked to Satan. But that was on the Sabbath. The Father wanted to meet with them on the Sabbath. The first Sabbath, he met with them and talked about his creation, what he created, what he required of them. And it's a beautiful fellowship. And so many people are missing that fellowship on the Sabbath. On the Sabbath, from 6 p.m. to 6 p.m., sometime during the time, he wants to do that spiritual operation to take the junk out of our lives that he's been talking about during the week. And the Sabbath rest is a picture of heaven. He can come back on any particular Sabbath because it's a beautiful preview of the rest in heaven for eternity with him. So we've been talking about the attacks that could be coming against our minds, pressure to submit to the Antichrist and how he's moving. Pray to the Father what I'm saying, and you see who the Antichrist is. He'll show you and how he's moving already. And he's moving very quickly, very quickly. And that's what the Father wants us to meet at least once, twice a week on this podcast and talk and pray. And you can leave me a comment. You can email me at contact, CONTACT, at henrywalker.org. We need to work together because he's soon to come back. Yeshua is. But there's that attack to try to pull some of the Father's people away from the Father. Just pray about what I'm saying. It goes with me to 2 Chronicles chapter 20 as we close. 2 Chronicles chapter 20. Just go to the left. Here's a situation where Jehoshaphat and all his people were under attack, but the attack happened against their minds first. And Judah, in verse 4, gathered themselves together to ask help of Yahweh. Even out of all the cities of Judah, they came to seek Yahweh. And they cried out to Yahweh in verse 15. And Yahweh said, Hearken ye, O Judah, and ye inhabitants of Jerusalem, and now King Jehoshaphat, thus said Yahweh unto you, Be not afraid nor dismayed by reason of this great multitude, for the battle is not yours, but the Father's. Tomorrow go against them. Behold, they came up by the cliff of Ziz, and you shall find them at the end of the brook, before the wilderness of Jeruel. And they showed up, and the enemy destroyed themselves. And all they had to do is spend 3 days picking up the spoils. See, that's our Father. He just wants us to stand still and see His salvation. And He will move for us. Look what He did at the Red Sea. He said, stand still. He opened up the Red Sea for His people, and then closed the Red Sea on their enemies. So you're going to come under attack, and it's going to try to come against your 5 senses: touch, taste, smell, hearing, and seeing. Draw closer to the Father, submit to the Father, resist Satan, and he will flee. So we'll pick this message up again next time. But every podcast, I mentioned to you, and it's especially important right now as we're talking about mind attacks, mind control, efforts by the Antichrist. If Satan or your flesh is giving you any thoughts that are contrary to the word of the Father, just say out loud, say, Yeshua, I thank you for the crown of thorns around your head. That was for me. That means my mind is protected by your blood. I only think your thoughts. And give those thoughts to the Father and go on. And also remember, from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. are the 12 hours of the night. And from midnight to 3 a.m., a lot of witches want to move. The Father may wake you up to pray for somebody. A person or persons could be under a strong witchcraft attack. Recognize that and pray. Also, from 3 a.m. to 6 a.m. are the darkest part of the night. That's when Yeshua walked on the water and said, I am, be not afraid. And the Father may wake you up during that time and say, pray for so-and-so, because they're going through the darkest night of their lives. Be obedient to the Father and pray about my message. And remember till next time, this is Evangelist Henry Walker saying, greater is the Father in us, our Daddy, the King of the universe, than anything or anybody in the world.
Oh,